and it smells amazing. It smells like a tomato. Hello and welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. So we're gonna have an interesting day of clean out, if you will. So I have to clean out a little bit in the greenhouse and amend one of the rows in there, but also we are headed into the fall time, and around here that means meat season. So I need to make sure that I have some space in my freezers, and right now I do not. One of the issues is I have not done literally anything except freeze our tomatoes this year. I have eaten some fresh, and we have freeze-dried some of like the cherry tomatoes, but as far as the slicers go, I've just been cutting them and putting them in the freezer. And so one of my freezers that is supposed to have pigs in it in about a month has tons of tomatoes, so I need to deal with them. So we actually have a lot of tomato sauce and chili sauce and barbecue sauce that I made last year, because last year we had a massive amount of tomato haul. We had a huge bumper crop of tomatoes, so really I'm not in need of more things like that right now. So I actually considered freeze drying some of the sauce that I made last year and then making more and canning more sauce from the tomatoes from this year, just to kind of restock that pantry, because technically you shouldn't eat canned food past about 18 months. As long as it's sealed, it's fine. It does kind of degrade in its nutrition. That was my consideration of, okay, I need to really work through that food and restock and replenish. So what I decided to do instead seemed a little bit smarter, work smarter not harder type thing, was focus on making sure I eat the already canned tomatoes by tomato season next year. And what I'm gonna do is actually freeze dry the tomatoes from this year. I have seen where lots of people have freeze dried their tomatoes and they've blitzed them up into kind of a powder in order to make like a tomato paste, a customized tomato paste. And I was thinking, why not do that exact same thing and just add maybe a tiny bit more liquid? I could even make my tomato sauce or reconstitute my tomato sauce with broth to increase the nutrition in the sauce and really kind of tailor the thickness to whatever I'm making. So that's what I'm going to be doing with the tomatoes today. I've got the freeze dryer pre-freezing, as you do, and then we need to load these tomatoes on the trays. I actually unloaded the freeze dryer this morning. I had some okra and some peppers, and I'm just gonna load the tomatoes straight onto these trays without washing them. There's really nothing wrong with them, and I would put these ingredients in my pasta sauce, so why not? I pulled these bags of frozen tomatoes out of the freezer a couple hours ago, not necessarily so they could thaw out all of the way, but so that I could break them apart and load them onto the freeze dryer trays a lot more easily. It's actually probably a good thing if some of these tomatoes kind of remain a little bit frozen, because the freeze dryer is just going to freeze them again anyway, and so this gives the freeze dryer a little bit of a head start. What we have behind me is a Harvest Right freeze dryer, and I just got it this year. We went ahead and bought the 5-tray freeze dryer because that's what our budget would allow, and everybody I saw making videos on freeze dryers had said, get the biggest freeze dryer that you can afford. So that's what we did. We had some people ask us if we were going to be upgrading our freeze dryer. Harvest Right just came out with an upgrade where you can keep your same freeze dryer, but they would send you a new insert so that you could freeze dry an extra tray every time you freeze dry. I looked into that, and the insert was just over $600 to upgrade from a 5-tray to a 6-tray, and I decided that it was not worth it. So it looks like I could have pulled out more than 5 gallon-sized bags of tomatoes out of the freezer, because 1 gallon-sized bag isn't quite filling up one of these freeze dryer trays, but that's okay. I can just remember that for next time and get these guys going. So this is what we're working with here. They do stick up above the lip of the tray a tiny bit, but that's okay because we do have space in the freeze dryer for that. You just gotta hop over. Well, you've got one fan. Kinda.
Oh.
No, Mama's better, huh? Yep. Nope. 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 Back up.
Here's my favorite part of the instructions so far.
Our product might arrive bent, and here's how you unbend it.
Yep.
Nice. Can you carry my Sluggo?
So does this.
Yeah.
Sounds weird when you shake it. Or just make like sounds like it's beads inside of it.
Yeah, it's granulated.
Sounds like there's a bunch of beads in it.
Oh, poor Betty. Hey, Betty. Come here, Betty. You can't reach it. Look. Come here. Look, Betty. And then she can get it. Come on, Betty. When we have goats in the pasture with the chickens, we've got to feed the chickens on the outside of the fence because the chicken feed is not good for the goats. And it's been a pretty good system, but poor little Betty, she's a bantam and her neck is not long enough, so got to feed her a little special. Pick up your feet, good.
I've never been that high before.
Yes, you have. So I've got the weed fabric peeled back right here, and you can tell that basically what we've been planting in for 2 years is clay. Now, I have previously made amendments to this space. We've put down things like gypsum before. I've laid down rabbit manure. I've put down hay, like a big thick layer of hay. You'd never know it. It's essentially still predominantly clay. It's kind of crazy. So one of the many things that I will be putting down in this bag is this fertilizer. Now, it is not organic. It just happens to be something that the previous owners of our farm left in one of the sheds. You only need to put down, let me see, 1 to 5 pounds of fertilizer per 1,000 square feet. That's a lot of space for not very much fertilizer, so that's kind of great. It's lasted a really long time. It goes a really long ways, and it's been doing well for us. So I am just going to sprinkle a little bit of this in the row, and then we'll add some amendments from the barn into the row.
Oh, hi, little buddy. Hi. Hi, Tony.
You can step a little closer to him. He's choking.
Closer. Ah!
He's trying to eat you, isn't he?
Don't eat me.
Nobody's home in the barn right now, so we'll see how long we can get away with this. So as you can see, it's getting difficult for me to open the door to come into the barn because of all of the buildup. This is all manure and spent hay and straw bedding, and actually a lot of it has really broken down nicely and is like powderized, and undoubtedly it's nutrient rich, and so we're gonna pour some of this down in the greenhouse. First things first, what I'm actually laying down is a 5-gallon bucket worth of rabbit manure. I like to put this on the bottom because it's a little bit more coarse, if you will. And on top of that goes 3 full buckets of what we just scooped up from the goat barn. This is actually my first time using goat bedding as a garden amendment. Goat manure and rabbit manure are both known as cold manures. They're a type of manure that you can put straight on the garden without composting time. You couldn't do this with like poultry manure, chickens and quail and turkeys, things like that. Those types of manure are known as a hot manure, and those need time to break down before you can use them in the garden. Otherwise, they're gonna burn your plants. I did throw a little bit of sluggo down in the greenhouse. I had issues last year with what I thought was mice, and I think mice were part of the problem, but I'm really wondering if it wasn't some pill bugs or roly-polies. Roly-polies are decomposers, but they will go after live plant tissue. Some of their favorite things to eat and mow down are brand new baby seedlings, and it's very heartbreaking to have all of the seedlings that you put in the garden disappear. So I'm trying this year. It is an organic type product, and so hopefully it helps. We're just gonna have to see. This here is our hugelkultur bed, our Vigo garden bed that was very graciously sent to us by Vigo Gardens. I plan on planting this bed hopefully this coming weekend with the garden tour, but I just put a little bit more of our homemade compost down at the top, and I am noticing there's quite a few roly-polies in here too, so sluggo is gonna go down.
It's too short for me.
I know, I noticed.
Not me.
Hey guys, so it's actually been a couple days and the freeze dryer is still going. I've never loaded it down with so much juicy material, if you will, and so it's kind of not surprising that it's taking a little bit longer to dry out. It's actually been drying for 41 hours and it still has quite a bit to go. So since this video is already going to be a little bit late to you, we're going to blitz up some of these cherry tomatoes so I can show you the idea behind what I'm doing here. So I've got this pretty cool herb and grain grinder here. We use it to grind coffee as well. And I'm just gonna put a handful of these tomatoes in here. And this thing is so powerful. These tomatoes are going to be absolutely powderized. Okay, so our tomatoes are all powderized, and the theory is that we can add as much water or broth or whatever, tomato juice, to reconstitute this powder to be whatever we want. So it could be tomato paste, it could be like pizza sauce, it could be like a tomato soup, honestly. See, it's starting to rehydrate. Look at this. This is amazing. It's already like a tomato paste type consistency. This is wonderful. And it smells amazing. It smells like a tomato. So these cherry tomatoes that I freeze dried, I did add salt to them before they went into the freeze dryer. So this sauce is very well seasoned already. Whether or not you're canning or freeze drying or whatever, preserving your tomatoes, if you wait to add your spices and seasonings later, it allows it to be a lot more customizable to what you're cooking like that day. So we've added a little bit more water. It's a lot more saucy. I think that if I used a blender to reconstitute this, that it would be a lot more ideal, but this is incredible. And this also allows me to pull as little or as much sauce out of my food storage as I want. So this is definitely a win. If you do happen to be in the market for a freeze dryer, another cool thing that they just incorporated was, I think it was 6,000 different service stations around the United States. So that's been one of the main issues with people, is what do I do if something happens to my freeze dryer? If it breaks down, it's kind of a pain in the butt to have to ship the components back to the company in order to get them serviced. Well, that's now a thing of the past, because Harvest right now has thousands of service stations around the country that can actually come to your home directly and service the freeze dryer. Now, as far as I know, it's not a huge issue. These don't break down super often, but personally that's really comforting to me to know that if I need it serviced ever in the future, that it's going to be much easier than it was previously. the boys did finish building our new shed here. We can never get enough outbuildings here. There's always something to store, something to keep dry. The initial hope that I had with this shed was to move some of my rabbit breeders into this space and free up some space in my barn in order to store more hay. But because of kind of the compact size, it's a little bit shorter than I thought it would be, and the black roof, I don't think it's going to work out for that, but we could use it for storage anyway. We are going to have to tie it down because our winds here can be pretty intense. Even though it looked a little bit flimsy while we were setting it up, it's actually quite sturdy. So I think it's going to be a good little addition for us. How goes it over here? What are you doing back there, Nefarious? Kind of crazy to see this one row completely bare, and to know that in the next few weeks, month or so, that everything in here is going to be completely bare. Thankfully though, it looks like we do have the very beginnings of our fall and winter garden starting to make their grand entrance today. So even though the greenhouse will look empty for a short amount of time, it won't be empty for very long.